Have you ever experienced a moment so profound that it made you question the very foundation of your beliefs? John Davies, a seasoned skydiver from Boulder, Colorado, was on the brink of such a revelation. Renowned for his unwavering precision and reliability in the skies, John had never once hesitated before a jump until a vivid dream of the Virgin Mary compelled him to reconsider his deepest convictions, ultimately altering the trajectory of his life. Dive into stories where the divine meets the everyday, and share your own moments of revelation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true life stories and join our growing community of hope and miracles. John Davies epitomized the life of a man grounded in routine and discipline. At 37, with over 2,500 jumps to his name, he was a legend in the skydiving community. His life was a symphony of controlled chaos: dawn runs, hearty breakfasts, and meticulous pre-jump rituals. Despite his daring profession, John was a skeptic at heart, dismissing the intangible faith and miracles as fanciful distractions. Yet, a single dream would soon challenge everything he held as truth. John Davies's life was a testament to the art of precision. As an esteemed instructor, he was the anchor in turbulent skies, the calm in the storm. With sandy hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to capture every detail, John had an aura of trustworthiness that reassured even the most apprehensive novices. His reputation for reliability was unmatched, making him the go-to person when things went awry. Despite his adventurous exterior, John's heart held a quiet skepticism toward the spiritual. Conversations about faith were often met with a gentle smile or a deft change of topic. His well-ordered existence encountered a ripple when Agnes, an elderly student, gifted him a medallion of the Virgin Mary. Accepting it with polite indifference, John regarded it as a quaint gesture, unaware of the profound significance it would soon hold in his life. Life resumed its familiar rhythm for John until a Friday evening in September when destiny intervened. With a significant jump scheduled for the following day, John retired early, his mind filled with anticipation. Yet, as he drifted into slumber, a dream unfolded that would unravel his certainties and embark him on a journey towards faith and enlightenment. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the slits of his blinds, John lay awake, the remnants of his dream clinging to him like a shadow. Despite the silence of his room, his mind was anything but quiet. The dream had been so lucid, so vivid, it felt more like a memory than a mere figment of imagination. In it, he found himself standing on the edge of a vast, golden field. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over everything, yet his eyes were drawn to a figure in the distance. As she approached, her presence seemed to exude a gentle radiance that illuminated the path before her. It was the Virgin Mary, unmistakably serene, her eyes filled with a wisdom that transcended time. She stopped before him, her gaze both tender and commanding, and simply said, "Not tomorrow." John awoke with those words echoing in his mind, accompanied by a sense of tranquility that was foreign to him, yet deeply comforting. He sat up, running a hand through his hair, trying to shake off the lingering haze of sleep. But the dream clung to him with an insistence that defied his usual logic. It was not like John to put stock in dreams. He was a man of action, of precision and planning. His life revolved around calculated risks, each jump meticulously prepared for and executed with exactitude. Yet this dream had slipped through the cracks of his reason, nestling into his heart where logic dared not tread. He rose and crossed the room to the small table where he placed the medallion Agnes had given him. There it lay, seemingly ordinary, yet in the soft morning light, it seemed to glimmer with a quiet significance. He picked it up, tracing the outline of the Virgin Mary's figure with his thumb, pondering the possibility that perhaps there was more at play here than mere coincidence. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of routine. He showered, dressed, and prepared his gear with the same meticulous care he always did. But the dream lingered in the back of his mind, a persistent whisper that refused to be silenced. As he made his way to the airfield, he found himself caught in an internal tug-of-war between his rational mind and the inexplicable conviction that the dream carried a deeper message. Arriving at the airfield, John was greeted by the familiar sight of his fellow skydivers, their faces a mixture of excitement, and concentration as they prepared for the day's jumps. Normally, such an atmosphere would invigorate him, but today, he felt a sense of detachment, as though he were merely an observer in a world that had suddenly become alien to him. "Morning, John!" called out Mike, one of his close friends and a fellow instructor, as he approached. "You ready for the big jump today?" John forced a smile, the words of the dream still echoing in his mind. "Yeah, just the usual jitters, I guess." Mike clapped him on the shoulder, oblivious to the turmoil beneath John's calm exterior. "You'll be fine. You've done this 100 times before." As the morning wore on, John found himself increasingly distracted, his focus drifting back to the dream and its cryptic warning. He wandered away from the group, seeking solitude to sort through the tangled thoughts in his mind. Standing at the edge of the field, he gazed up at the sky, an expanse of azure that beckoned him with its familiar promise of freedom. Yet today, that promise felt different, laden with an unseen weight that pressed upon his heart. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath, and allowed himself a moment of stillness. In that silence, he heard the echo of the Virgin's words once more. "Not tomorrow." It was then that he remembered something his grandmother, a devout Catholic, once told him. She had spoken of the mysterious ways in which God communicates, often through the quiet whispers of the heart. "Listen," she had said, "for sometimes faith speaks in the language of dreams." John opened his eyes, a newfound resolve settling over him. He made his way back to the group, his decision made. He approached Mike, who was busy checking equipment, and said, "Mike, I think I'm going to sit this one out." Mike looked up, surprise etched on his face. "You sure? Everything okay?" John nodded, his voice steady. "Yeah, just a feeling I can't shake. I'll catch the next one." Mike studied him for a moment before nodding. "All right, man. Trust your instincts." As John watched his friends take to the skies, he felt a strange sense of peace wash over him. The decision to heed the dream's warning, to trust in something beyond his understanding, had lifted a burden he hadn't realized he was carrying. He stood there, the medallion warm in his pocket, and for the first time, opened his heart to the possibility of faith. The rest of the day passed uneventfully, the skydivers returning with stories of another successful jump. No mishaps, no crises. Yet, as John listened, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had experienced something profound, a brush with the divine that had set him on a path he had never anticipated. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, John sat alone, the events of the day swirling in his mind. He took out the medallion, its presence now a comforting weight in his hand. He didn't have all the answers, and perhaps he never would. But in that moment, he understood that faith was not about certainty, but about trust, a trust that sometimes required a leap of a different kind. With a quiet determination, he resolved to explore this newfound path, to seek out the meaning behind the dream and the gentle nudge towards something greater than himself. It was a journey he never expected to take, but one that beckoned him with the promise of discovery and the hope of understanding. And so, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, John found solace in the knowledge that he was not alone. He carried with him the whispered assurance of a dream, the gentle guidance of a medallion, and the burgeoning faith that perhaps, just perhaps, he was exactly where he was meant to be. As dawn broke over the quiet countryside, the airfield lay shrouded in a mist that clung to the earth like a silken veil. The sun, a fiery orb rising in the east, promised a day of perfect conditions for John's skydiving team. Yet, as he drove along the winding road leading to the airfield, John's heart was a storm of conflicted emotions. The dream from the night before, the medallion's mysterious appearance, and the quiet realization of faith's complexity circled his thoughts like a gentle, persistent breeze. The usual thrill he felt as he approached the airfield was absent, replaced by an inexplicable unease. He tried to shake it off, attributing it to pre-jump jitters. After all, he was a seasoned professional, his career defined by fearless leaps from dizzying heights. And yet, this time felt different. There was a weight in his chest, a gentle pressure that seemed to whisper of caution. As he parked his car and stepped out onto the gravel path leading to the hangar, a sudden fragrance enveloped him, distinct and otherworldly. Roses. Their scent was rich and intoxicating, evoking memories of ancient cathedrals and whispered prayers. The association was immediate and profound: the Virgin Mary. He paused, his breath catching in his throat, as the scent lingered in the morning air. John shook his head, trying to clear his mind. It was just a scent, he told himself, perhaps from a nearby garden carried on the breeze. But deep down, he knew it was more. It was a sign, a gentle reminder of the dream and the medallion that had found its way into his life, urging him to listen. His team was already gathered near the hangar, their voices a mix of excitement and camaraderie. "Perfect day for a jump, John?" called out Mike, one of his closest friends and fellow skydivers. His enthusiasm was infectious, and John forced a smile, nodding in agreement. "Yeah, couldn't ask for better," John replied, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. As they geared up, the routine felt almost mechanical to him, each step familiar yet distant, as if he were watching himself from afar. His mind was elsewhere, caught in the pull of something unseen yet deeply felt. The sky was a brilliant blue, unmarred by clouds, the perfect canvas for their aerial artistry. As they approached the plane, John's heart began to race, not with excitement, but with a gnawing sense of uncertainty. He ran through the safety checks, his movements precise but absent-minded, his thoughts consumed by the scent of roses and the dream's lingering echo. The plane roared to life, and as they ascended, John found himself staring out the window at the vast expanse below, a patchwork of fields and forests stretching to the horizon. His teammates chatted animatedly, their voices a comforting hum that grounded him momentarily. But as they neared the jump altitude, the feeling of unease intensified, a silent crescendo urging him to listen. Mike's voice broke through the haze. "Ready, John? You're up first." It was a familiar ritual. John always led the jumps, his confidence a beacon for the others. But today, something held him back. He hesitated, his hand hovering near the door handle, the roar of the wind a reminder of the void waiting below. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat a question mark, challenging his resolve. And then, in that moment of indecision, he saw her. Not with his eyes, but with his heart, a vision of the Virgin Mary, serene and gentle, her presence a balm to his troubled soul. The scent of roses enveloped him once more, stronger than before, a sacred perfume that spoke of love and protection. John closed his eyes, his mind a whirl of confusion and clarity. He understood then that this was not a test of courage, but of faith, a call to listen to the quiet voice within, the one that urged him to trust in something greater than himself. With a deep breath, he turned to his team, his decision crystallizing in the silence between heartbeats. "I can't do it," he said, his voice steady yet filled with an emotion that took even him by surprise. A stunned silence followed, his teammates exchanging glances of disbelief. "John, are you okay?" Mike asked, concern etched on his face. John nodded, the weight in his chest easing as he spoke. I can't explain it, but I need to sit this one out. Trust me on this." His team, seasoned and respectful, nodded in understanding, though their eyes were filled with questions. They knew John, knew his instincts were never to be taken lightly. As they prepared for the jump without him, John remained in the plane, his heart a tumult of relief and uncertainty. He watched them leap into the void, their forms disappearing into the vastness below, and felt a strange peace settle over him. For the first time in his career, he had chosen to listen not to the roar of the wind or the thrill of the jump, but to the quiet, insistent voice that spoke of faith and trust. And as the plane circled back to the airfield, John knew that this decision marked the beginning of a new journey, one where leaps of faith were measured not in feet, but in the depth of understanding and the willingness to embrace the unknown. As the plane touched down, John's heart was light, buoyed by the knowledge that he was not alone. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was his, guided by the quiet assurance of a dream, the gentle scent of roses, and the burgeoning faith that perhaps, just perhaps, he was exactly where he was meant to be. As John stepped off the plane and onto the solid ground of the airfield, he was met with the crisp morning air that carried a sense of renewal, a fresh start. The world seemed different now, more alive, as if the colors were more vivid and the sounds more harmonious. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a reality that had always been there, waiting for him to see. The other skydivers were gathered in animated conversation, their voices rising and falling with excitement and relief. There was a palpable energy of camaraderie and shared experience, but John's thoughts were elsewhere, still lingering on the profound moment of insight he had felt during the flight. As he made his way to the hangar, the familiar figure of Father Michael emerged from the doorway, his eyes twinkling with a knowing look. They had met several times before, the priest always a source of guidance and wisdom. Today, however, his presence felt even more providential. "John!" Father Michael greeted him warmly, extending a hand that John grasped firmly. "I heard about the jump being called off. Quite an unusual occurrence, wouldn't you say?" John nodded, a wry smile playing on his lips. "Unusual, yes. But perhaps not without reason." Father Michael's expression shifted to one of curiosity and concern. "Come, let's walk. I'd like to hear what you mean by that." As they strolled along the edge of the airfield, John recounted the details of his dream, the insistent voice, and the overwhelming sense of peace that had guided him to make the decision to stay on the plane. "The scent of roses, you say?" Father Michael mused, his voice thoughtful. "A powerful symbol, often associated with the presence of the divine, particularly Our Lady." John nodded, feeling the truth of the priest's words resonate within him. "I knew it meant something. It was like being wrapped in a blanket of love and protection." They walked in silence for a moment, the wind whispering through the grass at their feet. Finally, Father Michael spoke again, his voice steady and reassuring. "John, it's not uncommon for God to speak to us in ways that are both subtle and profound. Often, it's through the language of the heart that He communicates His greatest truths. You've experienced something sacred, a moment of grace that has touched your soul." Just then, a technician from the airfield approached them, his face lined with worry. "Excuse me, are you John?" he asked, glancing between the two men. "I am," John replied, a hint of apprehension in his voice. "There's something you need to see," the technician said, gesturing for them to follow. They made their way to the hangar, where a bulletin board stood, a bright yellow notice pinned prominently in the center. The words, "Recall Notice," were printed in bold letters at the top, and as John read further, his heart skipped a beat. The parachutes they were supposed to use that morning had been flagged for a critical flaw, one that could result in catastrophic failure during deployment. The notice detailed the potential for the main chute to become entangled, rendering it useless at a critical moment. John's mind raced, the weight of what could have happened settling heavily on his shoulders. But alongside the shock and fear was another sensation, a profound, overwhelming gratitude. The voice in his dream, the scent of roses, the decision to stay on the plane, it all made sense now. Father Michael placed a hand on John's shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring. "This is no coincidence, John. It's a testament to the power of faith and the protection that comes when we trust in something greater than ourselves." John nodded, tears welling in his eyes as he absorbed the magnitude of what he had been spared. "I don't know how to thank Him," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "By living your life with the same humility and trust you showed today," Father Michael replied gently. "By being open to His guidance, wherever it may lead you." They stepped outside once more, the sun now high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the airfield. John felt a sense of peace unlike anything he had ever known, a quiet assurance that he was not alone, and that his life had a purpose beyond his understanding. As they parted ways, Father Michael offered a final piece of advice. "Remember, John, faith is not just about believing in what we cannot see. It's about acting on that belief, even when the path is uncertain. You've taken the first step. The rest will follow." With a renewed sense of purpose, John watched as the priest walked away, his figure growing smaller in the distance. He knew the journey ahead would be challenging, filled with moments of doubt and uncertainty. But he also knew that he was ready to face it, guided by the quiet assurance of a dream, the gentle scent of roses, and a faith that had been tested and found true. As the day wore on, John remained at the airfield, reflecting on the events of the morning and the miraculous intervention that had spared him from disaster. He spoke with his fellow skydivers, sharing what he had learned and listening to their stories of near misses and moments of grace. In the weeks that followed, John found himself drawn to the church more frequently, seeking out Father Michael's counsel and attending Mass with a new sense of devotion. He immersed himself in the teachings of the faith, finding solace and strength in the words of Scripture and the rituals that had sustained countless generations before him. Through it all, the memory of his dream remained vivid, a constant reminder of the presence of the divine in his life. It was a revelation that had transformed him, opening his heart to the possibility of miracles and the power of faith. And as he stood at the edge of the airfield once more, ready to take to the skies again, John knew that he was no longer the same man he had been before. He was part of something much greater, a story that was still unfolding, chapter by chapter, with each leap of faith bringing him closer to the truth he had been seeking all along. With a deep breath, he took his place among the other skydivers, the smell of roses lingering in his memory, a sacred echo of the love and protection that had guided him to this moment. And as the plane ascended into the clear blue sky, John felt a quiet peace settle over him once more, knowing that no matter what lay ahead, he was exactly where he was meant to be. As the plane soared into the sky, John's gaze drifted out of the window, where the world below slowly transformed into a patchwork of greens and browns. The hum of the engines was a comforting constant, a reminder that he was in motion, moving forward not just physically but spiritually as well. The clouds, like ethereal witnesses, seemed to whisper secrets of the heavens, urging him to listen. He leaned back in his seat, the familiar vibrations of the aircraft coursing through him, mingling with the quiet peace that had settled in his heart. The events of the past days played out in his mind like a sacred tapestry, each thread woven with purpose. The dream, the medallion, the inexplicable sense of presence during the incident, all signs pointing towards something greater, something divine. John closed his eyes, allowing himself to be enveloped by the memories. He recalled the dream with vivid clarity, the gentle voice that had guided him, the overwhelming sense of love and protection that had wrapped around him like a warm embrace. It was as if he had been touched by grace itself, a moment of transcendence that had shattered his skepticism and opened his heart to the possibility of miracles. The medallion lay heavy in his pocket, a tangible reminder of that moment. He reached for it, feeling its cool, smooth surface against his skin. It had been a gift from his grandmother years ago, passed down through generations, a symbol of faith that he had once dismissed as mere superstition. But now, it held a new significance, a sacred connection to the divine. With a sigh, John opened his eyes and glanced around the cabin. The other skydivers were immersed in their own thoughts, some chatting quietly, others gazing out the windows. It was a diverse group, each person carrying their own stories, their own struggles and triumphs. John felt a bond with them, a shared understanding of the courage it took to leap into the unknown. As the plane climbed higher, he felt a nudge within him, a gentle prompting to share his experience. Not to convince or convert, but to inspire. To offer a glimpse of hope, a reminder that the divine often whispers in the quiet moments, waiting to be heard. After the plane reached altitude, John unbuckled his seatbelt and made his way to the back, where a few of his friends were gathered. They greeted him with smiles and nods, their camaraderie a comforting presence. He took a seat beside Emily, a fellow skydiver who had been with him during the incident. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, a silent invitation to speak. "Emily," John began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Can I share something with you? Something that happened during the jump?" She nodded eagerly. "Of course, John. I've been curious about what was going through your mind that day." Taking a deep breath, he recounted the dream, the medallion, and the unexplainable sense of presence that had enveloped him. He spoke of his skepticism, how he had always dismissed such things as mere coincidence or imagination. But now, he saw them for what they truly were, signs of divine intervention, a call to faith that he could no longer ignore. As he spoke, the others gathered around, drawn by the sincerity in his voice. He felt their attention like a tangible force, their eyes reflecting a mix of wonder and understanding. When he finished, There was a moment of silence, a sacred pause that felt like a shared prayer. Emily was the first to speak. "John, that's incredible. It's like you were being guided, protected. I've had moments like that too, where I felt something more was at work. It's comforting to know we're not alone." Another friend, Mark, nodded in agreement. "It's easy to dismiss these things, but when you experience them firsthand, it's hard to deny. I've started paying more attention to those small signs in my own life, and it's changed the way I see the world." John smiled, grateful for their openness. "I think it's about being willing to listen. To be open to the possibility that there's more to this life than we can see. Faith, I've come to realize, is about trust. Trusting that we're part of a greater story, even if we don't fully understand it." The conversation flowed naturally, each person sharing their own experiences, their own brushes with the divine. It was a tapestry of faith, woven together by threads of vulnerability and hope. John felt a sense of belonging, a deep connection to the people around him, a reflection of the divine love that had guided him. As the plane began its descent, John gazed out the window once more, the landscape below coming into sharper focus. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet resolve to embrace this journey of faith, wherever it might lead him. He knew there would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt and uncertainty, but he also knew he was not alone. The divine presence that had touched his life would continue to guide him, whispering in the silence, urging him onward. With a final glance at the medallion in his hand, John tucked it safely back into his pocket. It was a symbol of faith, a reminder of the miracles that surrounded him. As the plane touched down, he felt a sense of anticipation, a readiness to take the next leap of faith, trusting that he was exactly where he was meant to be. And so, with each step forward, John embraced the unfolding story of his life, a journey of faith, guided by the unseen hand of grace, leading him ever closer to the truth he had been seeking all along. As John stepped off the plane, the air was crisp with the promise of a new beginning. The city around him shimmered under the late afternoon sun, its streets bustling with life, each face a tapestry of stories waiting to unfold. He took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the world around him. The medallion, warm in his pocket, was a reassuring presence, a silent companion on this journey of faith. His thoughts drifted back to the events that had brought him here. Each moment, each leap of faith had been a step towards this newfound perspective. The mundane had become miraculous, the ordinary now imbued with a sense of the divine. He had learned to see with new eyes, to perceive a reality that was both tangible and transcendent. As he walked through the city, John noticed the small acts of kindness that often went unnoticed: a stranger helping an elderly man cross the street, a child sharing her snack with a friend, a busker playing a soulful tune that seemed to lift the spirits of all who passed by. These moments, he realized, were manifestations of grace, echoes of the divine presence that permeated the world. Later, as he sat in a small cafe, sipping a cup of coffee, John took out the medallion and turned it over in his hands. It was a simple object, unassuming, yet it held a profound significance. It was a reminder of the journey he had undertaken, of the faith that had sustained him through moments of doubt and fear. "Mind if I join you?" a voice interrupted his thoughts. John looked up to see a man standing before him, a friendly smile on his face. He gestured to the empty chair opposite John. "Please," John replied, gesturing for the man to sit. "I'm Michael," the man said, extending a hand. "John," he replied, shaking it. There was a warmth in Michael's gaze, an openness that put John at ease. They spoke for a while, their conversation flowing easily, as if they were old friends. Michael shared stories of his own journey, tales of faith and discovery that resonated deeply with John's own experiences. "You know," Michael said, his tone contemplative, "sometimes we don't realize the impact we have on others. A simple act of kindness, a word of encouragement, it can change someone's life." John nodded, thinking of the many people who had touched his life in ways both profound and subtle. "It's like we're all connected," he mused, "part of something greater than ourselves." Michael smiled, a glint of understanding in his eyes. "Exactly. That's the beauty of it. Faith isn't just about believing, It's about seeing the divine in everything and everyone around us. As the afternoon wore on, John felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. His encounter with Michael was yet another reminder of the mysterious ways in which faith manifested itself, often through unexpected encounters and seemingly ordinary moments. When they parted ways, John felt lighter, as if a burden he hadn't realized he was carrying had been lifted. He wandered through the city, the medallion in his pocket a constant reminder of the journey he was on. That evening, as he lay in bed, John's thoughts turned inward. He reflected on the path he had taken, the challenges he had faced, and the growth he had experienced. Each step had brought him closer to an understanding of the spiritual realm, a realm where the boundaries between the seen and unseen blurred, where faith and grace intertwined. He realized that embracing the unknown was not about having all the answers, but about trusting in the journey itself. It was about acknowledging that protection and guidance often came from the most unexpected places, and that the divine presence was always with him, even in moments of uncertainty. As sleep began to claim him, John's heart swelled with gratitude. The world was a vast and wondrous place, filled with endless possibilities and hidden miracles. He was ready to embrace it all, to continue this journey of faith with an open heart and an open mind. In the quiet of the night, John whispered a silent prayer of thanks, trusting that he was exactly where he was meant to be. His story was still unfolding, each chapter a testament to the power of faith, the beauty of redemption, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. With a final, contented sigh, John drifted into a peaceful sleep, knowing that the next leap of faith awaited him, guided by the unseen hand of grace, ever closer to the truth he had been seeking all along. Write in the comments, "Parachute, the equipment he trusted more than anything." And remember to subscribe so you never miss a story that could change your perspective on faith and protection.